Luzon is the largest and politically most important island in North Philippines. The upper part of the island contains the country's largest mountainous area called Cordillera Central. There we visit SAGADA, a tranquil mountain town some 1500 meters above sea level. Agriculture is the main source of income in SAGADA, and vegetable farms are dotted around the landscape. Cabbages, carrots and potatoes are common crops, while rice is planted for household consumption. The hillsides surrounding the village are covered in pine forest. The Cordillera region of Luzon is the home of the Igorot or mountain dwelling groups. Igorot is derived from the Tagalog word for mountaineer. Downtown of today's SAGADA, the villagers sell their homegrown produce. There's little traffic and there are no smoky tricycles fuming the air. You can walk down the middle of the road or, now come on guys, and rarely be disturbed by a passing vehicle. We stayed at the family-run Olabinan Rest House. The noisy deep well water pump at the entrance feeds the water tank situated on the roof. This hotel has the luxury of warm water, provided that there is no electric power shutdown. From the hotel room window, we see the St. Mary's Episcopal Church, established in 1905 by a mechanical engineer turned churchman, the American missionary John A. Staunton Jr. Finding no native materials for the construction of typhoon-proof buildings, Staunton used most of the mission's budget for the construction of a water-powered sawmill, a lime kiln, and a petrol-fueled generator, machinery for which had to be shipped from the United States and carried piece by piece over the narrow, slippery mountain trails. The church as it stands today was consecrated in 1921. The Great American Depression marked the end of the large subsidies the mission had enjoyed and forced an inevitable decline. During the Second World War, the entire American staff was imprisoned. Staunton's dream of an industrial Catholic mission was never revived. The wheels of the sawmill are all that remains of SAGADA's early industrialization. A good way to start the day is with breakfast at the yogurt house just opposite of the hotel. Here you get tasty, creamy, homemade yogurt made from raw milk from cattle that roam around freely. Literally. And consequently have a very diverse diet. The restaurant also serves spicy ginger tea and native coffee, which was introduced by the Spaniards in the 19th century. The beautiful scenery and cool climate make the area an excellent place to hike. We leave the village passing the church and head out to what outsiders call Echo Valley, but locals name it Valley of the Dead. The locals consider the valley a sacred burial ground and a positive place for the spirits of the dead. No one will chop down trees from this area. SAGADA is known for its hanging coffins, found in caves and on the limestone cliff sides surrounding the village. The forebears of the current residents had an unusual burial practice by hanging and stacking coffins chopped from tree trunks in the limestone cliffs and caves near the village. Most SAGADA natives are now buried on the cemetery, although some members of the older generation are still put to rest this ancient way. The white and blue painted coffin is from 2005 while this one is at least 200 years old. The older coffins, made of one solid tree trunk, seem to hold up better over time, but it also depends if the coffin is protected from the elements. Just like other things in life, the higher the coffin, the higher the status of the individual. In the early days, the members of the immediate family were expected to sit beside the departed for 1.5 days until burial. If the family wasn't around, then the dead body was rubbed with fragrant local herbs which cancel out the smell of the dead. People would gather for the wake to pay their respect to the departed and sing their messages or requests to ask for his spiritual assistance. Organs were then removed and the body was placed in a fetal position inside the pine coffin. It's a mystery as how they were placed so high in the middle of the cliff face. From the hanging coffins, we take the trail further downhill, deeper into Echo Valley, and follow a riverbed that will lead us to the underground river cave from Latang. You can walk through the cave, but be aware that the 250-meter distance will take about 20 minutes to cross.
Nung isilan ka sa mundong ito, laking tuwa ng magulang mo, at ang kamay nila ang iyong ilaw. At ang nanay at tatay mo'y di malaman ang gagawin, minamasdan pati pagtulog mo. At sa gabing napupuyat ang iyong nanay sa pagtimpla ng gatas mo. At sa umaga na may kalong ka ng iyong amang tuwang-tuwa.
The log cabin serves excellent Western-style food based on local produce fresh from the farmland. You need to order your dinner before 3 in the afternoon and inform the owner about the time it needs to be served. The atmosphere in the restaurant is cozy and warm, and to our relief, no disco or hip-hop music in the background. The fire kept out the chill of the night, and we enjoyed our wine until it was time to go to sleep. There is an evening curfew in Sagada starting at 9 to prevent evening dwellers from disturbing a peaceful night. Until the 1960s, the majority of the houses in Sagada were still traditional Igorot. A few of those are still remaining in Demang, one of Sagada's 19 barangays, a little south of the village square. The Igorot house is about 5 by 7 meters and walls of about 1 to 1.5 meters high. It is high-pitched, tall enough to build a rice granary inside to keep the harvest safe from rats. It took a few days to build a house with a stone-walled pig pen. Each family is expected to have pigs and chicken. The yard is paved with stones, and the community would help together and carry the materials. Nowadays, the houses are built of wood with aluminum or zinc cladding to protect it from the elements. In Demang, you will find a few dapais, circular stone areas next to a small thatched roof hut where in the early years the Council of Elders performed religious rites and settled disputes. It is a public structure used as a dormitory by bachelors and young boys. The Dabais were later federated into one ili, or village. Male villagers still gather here for offerings of animals to anitos, or spirits. Human heads are no longer used as headhunting is no longer practiced. You may see chicken feathers, evidence that a sacrifice was recently made. This open patch of land in Dagdag Barangay is the site of a massacre in early 1900 in which the neighboring Bontoc tribe took over 80 Sagadan heads in one gory night. In those waning years of the Spanish regime, the colonial authorities in Bontoc got word of Filipino nationalist activities in Sagada and organized a punitive raid. The Bontocs leaped at this chance to strike at their traditional enemies. The Kiltepan rice terraces are arguably the most extensive found in Sagada. It got the name from its three bounding barangays, Kilong, Tetepan, and Antadao. The ancestors of the Igorot may have chosen to farm up the sides of the hills in preference to encroaching on the territory of their fierce neighbors. The structures are an engineering wonder. The walls are small rocks laboriously piled one on top of the other and constructed with drainage systems so that water reaches every terrace in a controlled cascade, maximizing farm space in the mountainous Cordillera region and environmentally preventing erosion. These terraces are frequently referred to as the eighth wonder of the world. They rise up to the heavens, giant steps leading to the sky. Legend has it that the Igorot god Kambunyan used these steps to visit his people on earth. Today these structures, carefully nurtured and expanded over 2,000 years, are under threat from neglect as young tribespeople abandon their traditional lifestyles, preferring the bubblegum, neon-lit, fume-choked squalor of downtown Manila or Baguio. In the valley, we run into the Latang River again, but now on the other side of the cliff that is tunneled by this underground river. We need to cross to get to the Bokong waterfalls. Our hiking shoes are not the most ideal footwear for this area, as the sticky mud fills the sole profile and makes it slippery. Cross-country spikes or sandals that can become wet are definitely a better bet. The Bokong waterfalls, where one can take a refreshing dip, are situated in the outskirts of the central barangay of Patay. It is a favorite playground for children, and the villagers use the place for washing and cleaning. The pool at the foot of the waterfalls is deep and carved out of solid rock, the result of the continuous beating by the water for centuries as it persistently pushed its way downstream. Bokong's beauty is complemented by the splendor of the rice terraces looming along the narrow footpath to the waterfalls, a perfect harmony of natural and man-made wonders. Ain't this a nice place to live? It's time to move on, and we wait on the village square for the bus to leave. The short-haul jeepneys leave from the left side of the road, while the long-distance bus for Baguio leaves from the right-hand side. From the top of the jeepney boot, one can load the vehicle's roof with cargo. Villagers wait on the roadside for business from visitors that pass through and sell vegetables, wood carvings, and the famous SAGADA weaving. This entrepreneur makes the best of it and pops corn in a self-made popper. Final preparations on the bus are a necessity. The road to Baguio is unpaved, and it is not uncommon to have one or sometimes two flat tires on this journey. Bye-bye Sagada, we shall return. We follow the road from Sagada to Bontoc, and there take the famous Halsema Highway, better known as the mountain trail to Baguio. 6 hours of bumpy, unpaved road that twists and turns along the valley of the Chico River and passes through magnificent Cordillera scenery. We pass a few construction sites, but large-scale road improvement projects suffer from lack of funding and corrupt government officials. Newly paved roads are quickly damaged by overloaded trucks and landslides caused by heavy rainfall and typhoons. The unplanned halts give you the opportunity to enjoy the Cordillera scenery. After 2 hours, we make our first stop. For some, it's a happy stop, near Mayabay. Bus is immediately surrounded by locals who try to sell homemade food, fried fish and soft drinks. Traveling in the Philippines takes time, and you should make the travel an essential part of your journey in order to enjoy your stay. Too tight a schedule and you will miss your next connection, spoiling the fun. Our second stop is at Atok Saddle, which functions as a truck stop. Most traffic is small truck carrying local produce to the markets in Baguio and Manila, or minibuses that are a popular people carrier because they offer more luxury than the traditional jeepneys. Here again is a possibility to stock up on food. Baguio was originally constructed by the US military forces as a mountain retreat in the early 1900s. Nicknamed the summer capital, Its cool climate attracts Manila's wealthy when the lowlands are sweltering. The city's appeal as an idyllic mountain getaway has faded with the lack of good accommodation, water shortages, smog, and traffic-ridden streets. We stayed in the conveniently located Burnham Hotel. It is cozy and nicely decorated with native handicrafts like the Cordillera weaving. A 20th century telephone switchboard is tucked away in the corner of the attic. The ambience of the room is a throwback to yesteryears, when life was a lot more simple. We visit the city market, a maze of alleys and stalls covering a total of 3 square kilometers. Here we buy the famous Baguio strawberry jam and the locally made peanut butter, as well as dusters and other practicalities for Lida's family.
Ngayon nga ay malaki ka na, ang nais mo'y maging malaya, di man sila payag walang magagawa.
The market is a great place to get lost for a few hours.
Ikaw nga ay biglang
The sights and the smell of the food alone is reason enough to spend time here.
nagpayo nila'y sinuway mo.
This concludes our first visit to the Cordillera region, as we need to head back to Manila to attend the wedding of Alma, a long-term friend of Liza since her period as a student at the AMA College. See you next time.
Nais mo'y masunod ang layaw mo, di mo sila pinapansin. Nagdaan pang mga araw at ang landas mo'y naligaw, ikaw ay nalulung sa masamang bisyo.